Well, it was eventual. Power of the Jedi was coming to an end. A line that started with leftover figures from the flashback series and the original Comcheck series from Power of the Force 2 for the original trilogy, had to make way for change. And that change was in the form of Episode 1, which, after the first year and everyone finished souveniring, go see my video on that, I'll link it at the end, Episode 1 toys didn't do too well in that second year, which is why the edict came down from Lucasfilm that the line had to be reworked to include 50% classic trilogy figures, which is really a good thing for those of us who collect classic trilogy figures, because we got weird-ass shit like this. Still one of my favorite figures. So, yeah, Power of the Force 2 was a era I fondly remember, and it culminated in some Episode 2 preview figures, so kind of linking Episode 1 to Episode 2. It was that period between the first two prequels. And with Power of the Force 2 and Power of the Jedi now ending, it's time to look at that last wave of Power of the Jedi, and that's going to kick it off with Teebo! Yep, see, now you understand what that last image from the previous video was. Actually, it has two meanings. You'll get to that by the end of the video. All right, Teebo. Ewok, right? Actually, a significant Ewok because he's had more action figures than any other Ewok. Crazy, right? I mean, for characters that were literally created to sell breakfast cereal and plush dolls, you'd think that we would have been flooded with Ewoks in the Power of the Force 2 era, but no, not so much, as I've covered in previous videos. So why did we get Teebo as opposed to, Rebo or Klebo or Vleeblo? Well, what exactly is the story behind this infamous Ewok with so many action figures? And it's probably because, well, he's a warrior. He is like, the badass Ewok. I kind of wish the Ewoks were more like this, that, in the movie they were just, tearing up stormtroopers viciously as opposed to, accidentally hitting them over the head with rocks. It might have been cooler. But yeah, even though Wicket is kind of the poster boy of Ewoks, Teebo, as the sort of lead hunter of his tribe, and the fact that he's, wearing like a pig on his head, which is definitely Trafe, he's kind of badass, and so badass that he's not only had a lot of 3 3/4 figures, he's one of the only Ewoks that's been done in the Black Series 6-inch line. I mean, there have been a few, and there's a Wicket coming, but yeah, Teebo came before Wicket. Teebo even got a re-release of his Power of the Jedi figure on the upcoming Gold Saga cards, which we're going to be covering soon as we head towards Episode 2. And this first figure, although really great to have another Ewok, was actually out of scale. He was a little bit too big, much like the Power of the Force 2 figures. So eventually we would get a rescaled Teebo once the Ewok scale got reset with a Chief Chirpa figure. And then we would get a all-new Teebo figure in this really awesome Ewok pack from Toys R Us, and then that figure would get repacked as a vintage collection figure as a single card a few years after that. So even though, yes, some of them are the same figure re-released, there were more sculpts as well of Teebo than anyone else. And Teebo appears twice. He appears in the forest and here at the end at the celebration, playing the drums. And that pack from Toys R Us came with all of the accessories and sort of both versions of his necklace and headdress. It changes a little. So this version is the one from him being in the woods when they uncover C-3PO and, think he's a golden god and all that. I don't know, go see Almost Famous for that reference. All right, moving on to a droid. And much like Ewoks, Astro droids were also very few and far between in the beginning of the line. That would self-correct itself. Self-correct itself? Well, you know what I'm trying to say. This was one of the very first droids we ever encountered in the original trilogy, being on the Tanaviv, following up R2-C3PO, and I think U-3PO was also there. So he is an Imperial droid, or he's a spy droid. I forget the history. I don't know. Go look it up, nerds. It's on Wikipedia. But he's significant for a few reasons in that we do get a new dome shape, the pyramidal or triangular dome, as opposed to the rounded dome. And that was great because, again, very few droids released before this point. We had the R4-Q2, or whether the Imperial one we covered a few weeks ago, and there he is behind R2 there. So yeah, eventually the whole droid thing would kind of self-correct itself once Hasbro realized they could use the same tool over and over again, just repaint it, which is, the golden goose in toy making. And even Disney Parks got into this by releasing tons of holiday-themed sets as well as figures from the different Disney movies. And you'll notice that pack on top there has one of the very few Disney packs that actually had a classic trilogy droid in it. So we got a second version of R4-M9, this time with slightly darker paint and without the light pipe eye that the Power of the Jedi, had. So you can see them here side by side. Same droid, slightly different, and without the light pipe eye that we also got with the Jawas and a few other early figures. I think one of the droids from Jabba's palace had that. There was also a Star Tours release of M4-M9. Same name, but maybe different droid? I don't know. We'll get into that. We are going to cover the Star Tours droids in time when they get released. So, for those of you who love A New Hope and love that first scene going down the hallway in the Rebel blockade runner, now you too can... I always thought he was being captured, but I guess he was an Imperial droid. So, there you go. All right. As Power of the Jedi came to its close, and again, I'm only covering classic trilogy figures, not all of those Episode 1 figures, which, for those of you who collect Episode 1, good for you, but just not my bag, baby. Well, we had one figure that kind of also really stood out towards the end, and, it's not Darth Vader, it's this guy, Boshek. See, there's the other Bo, Teebo and Boshek. It's a Bo episode. So, Boshek is interesting for a few reasons. Now, I've mentioned in quite a few videos how the cantina was mostly populated by humans until they did the pickup shots in LA months or other years later. This was one of the characters who was actually on set. And, back then, no one really thought we were going to get action figures, and he's the only human outside of characters with lines like the bartender or Dr. Evazan, who actually got action figures. We don't have any other humans from the cantina. The line tended to focus on the aliens because they're masked. And that's because, they didn't really get the actors to sign off on likeness rights back then, because no one ever thought a background human in the cantina, like the Tanaka sisters, was going to make a good action figure. And when one of the actresses who played the Tanaka sisters noted this in a podcast that she never signed likeness rights, suddenly Lucasfilm was like, oh, crap, you're right, we don't have the rights to make all of those humans from the cantina. I guess we probably should have never made Boshek. Well, good thing the actor passed away, because he could probably sue us for a lot of money. So, yeah, they never got likeness rights because back in the 70s, when this movie was made, nobody thought space toys would make money. All right, so why does Boshek, of all the humans in the cantina, be the one that, breaks this human barrier, this one-time human barrier, which will probably never get broken again? Well, like most characters in the cantina, he gets an exciting expanded universe backstory, which I'm sure has now been rendered null and void, thanks to Disney saying that all of the expanded universe stuff never happened. But he's also the character who actually interacts with Obi-Wan and Chewbacca. In fact, he introduces them. He's played by David Alan Grier in the radio drama. So, I don't know, maybe he's black in the radio drama. Who knows? But the reason he exists as an action figure is this guy here, Adam Paulus. Good friend of mine, former coworker of mine, all-around amazing Star Wars collector. And he's run many Star Wars sites, including Galactic Hunter, and he runs 16bit.com. He used to blog all the time about how Boshek represented the extreme of the line, like you should never make this figure, kind of like Ice Cream Maker Man. He just basically blogged about him all the time, and he would use him as the butt of jokes, basically saying, Boshek doesn't deserve to get a figure. He's too lame. Or, he's too extreme. You're digging too deep if you do Boshek. Never make a Boshek. And he used to blog about this all the time. And basically, that caught Hasbro's attention. And I don't know if this was a F you to Adam or a thank you to Adam, but they made him. Adam was delighted in the fact that he helped make this. And now you too can recreate that scene where Obi-Wan Kenobi meets Chewbacca through the heroism of no other than Boshek, the only human made it from the cantina.